Regional workers and businesses are warning that lifting the minimum pay for temporary skilled migrant workers to $70,000 could smash small economies and fuel the jobs crisis. Employers fear the temporary skilled migration income threshold hike, rising from $53,900 to $70,000 from tomorrow, will threaten access to foreign workers and impact thousands of jobs across the country. Joining me now live is Nationals MP Keith Pitt. Keith, thanks for joining us. What sort of an impact will this have in the regions?
Well, what an extraordinary attack on regional Australia. This is just another stab in the back for those individuals out there working hard trying to run businesses. The short version is this. Horticulture's harvest workforce is made up by about 80% of which being backpackers. They've just been slapped with an increase on visas from $130 to $640. That's a massive increase, highest in the world. Changes to the Pacific Island Labour Scheme, which my local farmers tell me are basically unworkable and they probably won't use them into the future. And now these proposed changes. Where is it that Labor thinks we will get a workforce from in the regions? How will we produce food for the cities and everyone else that requires it around the world? They just make life harder.
But is it a difficult one to navigate? No doubt it will put pressure on certain sectors, like you said, farming, but we don't want to be underpaying people at the same time. So how do you get the balance right here?
Well, it's always been challenging, but not every farmer out there is a bad seed, and it's not just farmers. Everyone needs support in the regions, in technical skills as well. It doesn't matter whether it's graphic design or whether it's people who are working in a workshop down the road. If you can't get a boilermaker that can help you put a repair into your packaging facility in a regional pack house, well, you're just not operational. All of these things have a direct impact on the ability for business to just be straight out functional. And it is a multi-pronged attack from Labor. All they care about is unionising the workforce, and that is not good for the people that live in the regions.
All right, let's move on now. Tourism Australia has launched a new campaign to try and attract visitors from China back to Australia, of course, after the pandemic. We'll have a quick look at it now.
Good day，我叫 Freddy。
哇哦，澳大利亚可真是独一无二，
与众不同吧？
这一切就像在演电影。
So what are you waiting for? Come and say good day.
A couple of cute-looking characters there, Keith. What do you make of it? Do you think this is what we need to bring that important market back here?
Well, Tourism Australia is the experts, and they're trying to put their shoulder to the wheel, as I heard this morning, but they've got both arms tied behind their back. Labor cut $36 million out of their budget last October. Imagine how much more work they could be doing if they hadn't been slashed by the Treasurer. And, you know, we do need those tourists back in Australia. It does help drive our economy. But if we look at the point I made earlier, if there's no one in regional Australia to do the work, whether it's working in those facilities, whether it's in hospitality, whether it's in farms or other regions, no tourists are going there either. There's just no services able to be provided. So it's a multi-pronged challenge. I'm pleased they are looking to try and increase that trade again. But you can't have both. You can't be cutting Tourism Australia's funding and expecting them to do more.
But if we look at the timing, though, of the release of this ad, it comes at a time where Australia and China are trying to iron out those trade difficulties. So do you think that this is now a further sign that relations are thawing?
Oh, well, there's always strong programs into China under the Coalition for Tourism. I'd like to see that sort of work, of course, occur. We do want to have a strong relationship with China, but not at a risk to our national security or our sovereignty. Now, these were always the challenges in terms of the balance when the Coalition was in government. My concern is what is Labor giving up for these outcomes? And I'd hope it's not things in the critical mineral space, for example, which is a national security issue. It's not an economy issue. But we do want to see more work and more opportunities because that's what builds our nation. It's what gives opportunities to our kids. It's what provides jobs. You've got to strike the right balance. But the right balance is not cutting funding from the bodies that are actually driving the economy and adding in more GDP.
All right, let's move on now. The National Anticorruption Commission, it begins its operations from tomorrow, July 1. What do you hope is investigated?
Well, firstly, they've got extraordinary powers. That is a great responsibility. And if we look at the Berejiklian circus over the last couple of years, I think Gladys was a great Premier. And the fact that these things became public destroyed her opportunity to have them investigated quietly and appropriately without damaging her as an individual is the wrong approach. So I think at the federal ICAC, it's supported by the coalition. We put up some changes which we thought were important, but it shouldn't be something that's used for political witch hunts. And it should be done quietly, and there should be penalties for those that look to use it in that way. So it has extraordinary powers. We'll wait to see how those powers are utilised, but we do welcome the appointments that are recently made.
But isn't it in the public's interest to know about these dealings? I mean, the ICAC found Gladys Berejiklian and did indeed act corruptly. So why should it be behind closed doors?
And yet they're not making out in challenges and haven't recommended anything for prosecution. So the matter that it's behind closed doors is because everyone is entitled to a presumption of innocence. It's one of the basis of the law in Australia and around the world, in fact. It's a very important tenet. I want to see that supported. And you know how this works, Danica. Reputations can be ultimately destroyed completely on what is sometimes false allegations or ones which can't be proven and aren't correct. And I just think that's a dangerous time. I want to see good people in the parliament. I want to see good people put their hand up as candidates. And it is these types of activities that scare a lot of them off. Why put yourself out in the public arena if you know that you don't have the right to a presumption of innocence? Or there is the potential that someone could simply throw wild allegations at you publicly, which you can't defend, and you end up in this situation. So the balance has got to be struck. I don't recall seeing corrupt conduct in the federal parliament, but this body has been put in place, and we'll see how it works.
What needs to happen to ensure cases don't drag on in terms of the Gladys case in New South Wales that took 18 months? So what should happen to ensure there isn't such a lag at a federal level?
Well, I'll come back to the point that I made earlier. The idea that these things are announced publicly and accusations are made publicly before there's even a whiff of evidence or investigation, I think is the wrong approach. They should be kept quiet, they should be done internally, and if there are matters to be dealt with, well, that is the point at which things become public. Now, I know that there are very strong penalties inside the ICAC proposal for those who make false accusations, and that is a good thing. And the Australian public they absolutely deserve and have the right to have people in politics who are not impacted, who are not doing the wrong thing. But as I've said, it's not something that I've seen. I don't expect that there will be any of those things, but who knows? You just don't know what others are up to.
Yeah, that's for sure. Keith Pitt, good to speak with you. We have to leave it there. Thank you.